Hi everybody, welcome back to Stamping School. This week I'm playing with the plaid background stamp. It's a big one. It is a large stamp. They have several of them in the Stampin' Up! Catalog 2023, page 118. This is the one we're going to be using. You can see there's 6 of them here. You know, they used to be a big staple in stamping before embossing folders. This is how we used to put all kinds of texture, you know, before we started using machines and all that. And they used to come on a big wood block. Now you don't have to have this big block to use this stamp. That's the really nice thing about this. The way that we're going to use it, you don't have to have it. If you have one, that's great. But I like to use my stamp case. And if you turn it, remember this is sticky side and the rubber side up. If you turn it this way, you've got a lot of room to work, and you can, if you keep it, it just stays nice and flat, and you can use it. Any kind of surface will work for this. You don't have to use a stamp case, but I just find it kind of helps keep the mess inside. So I've got 4 ways to use this background stamp. So the first way, of course, is you could just stamp it tone on tone. But if you want to step it up just a little bit, this is kind of fun to do. See how it's kind of watercolored looking? I really like how this turned out. This is actually a stamp set that's coming out soon. I think maybe it's in the holiday catalog. It's called Translucent Florals. And I just did it in the new Azure Afternoon and Lemon Lime Twist. Just kept it very kind of monochromatic. But you see the difference between the two? All right, I'll show you how I did that. There's a few tricks too for stamping this and getting the image off easily. Grab some Post-it notes, get one handy. Okay, we're going to open our ink pad and we're going to ink it this way. Now even when you have a really big background stamp, you don't have to hover it over and try to stamp. You can just stamp it upside down, and I'll show you my little Post-it note trick. So you're going to take your piece of cardstock and add the Post-it note here, and that's going to be like a handle. So now you can kind of position it just where you want it. Put it down. I like to line up on the outside. This is bigger than what I'm going to need, so I line it up, and then I take my block. Now, if you need this side to be pretty, you want to put a piece of copy paper on top. I don't need it to be pretty. So you're just going to hold this down, and usually what happens, it's when we take it off that there's usually a little bit of a smear. So the Post-it note is going to help keep it just the way we want it. So we don't want to pull back because that will slide the ink, right? We want to just go straight up. And there it is. So having this Post-it note or piece of tape or whatever you want to use is just a great handle. And then because it's so big, I'll just rinse it off in the sink. You know, you can use your chamois, but it's just easier because they get pretty messy. So I typically just run it off with water in the sink. Okay, so that's just stamped regular. Now, to get that watercolor look, actually I was going to do this first, and then I totally forgot and just stamped it. All right, you're going to get your ink on there, whatever color you want to do. And if you have a wet paintbrush, or if you have one of these aqua painters, I think they're called water painters now. They come in different sizes. You get a whole package of them in different widths. And then just gently run this through. Now you could spray it with your water bottle. However, I find that there's not as much control. I kind of like going back through all the little lines like this. Get everything kind of blended with the water. I'm going to do the Post-it note again. I'm going to do the other side of this. Okay, same thing. We're going to lay it down carefully. There. And exactly the same thing with the block. The clear blocks are nice because they slide really nicely. Some people just use their fingers, but I find that you miss a spot that way. Okay, and then we're going to pull up. Now you can let that air dry, or you can hit it with your heat tool, and it gives it a really cool blurry look. And this is what it looks like. These are almost bled together, but I really like it. So I cut this down to 4 by 5 1/4, and then I mounted it with some dimensional stuff right there. So it gives it that extra little pop. Now, as a side note, if you are using these translucent florals, there's a little trick to any of these that are kind of etched like this. This stamp set is supposed to look like this. So it's got almost like a little netting, look, and it's pretty cool how they do this with the rubber and make it look like that. But it's really tricky to stamp. So for instance, if like with this azure color, which is kind of dark, if you just ink it up, open your pad and ink it up, especially if you have a new pad, it's gonna look like that, and that's not very pretty. So my tip for you on this, if you're using these, is to take your block, and you want one that has the smooth edge like ours. Be careful, and don't use a bone folder, for heaven's sakes. Who started that? Who wants to mess up a pretty bone folder by scraping your ink? No. Use the block so it rinses off easily. It's nice and smooth. Don't use the one that has a real sharp edge. And just scoot that ink up halfway. You're gonna see it lighten. Now, if your ink pad looks like this already, it probably needs to be re-inked, and it's probably perfect. But just scoot that up. Now when you stamp it, it's a lot less ink. And look at the difference. It's so pretty. And same thing with all the colors that you do. So unless your pad is already in need of inking, and then when you're done, just scoot it back. Scoot the ink back. And then you're ready for the next thing. Okay, just scoot it back and blend it all back in again. I mean, that's the thing. Some stamps require less ink and some require more. Some you want to be really inked up and really bold, and some you don't. And that's just kind of the nuances of the stamping. All right, well, that's the first one. Now, sometimes it's just fun to color. And if you like to color, sometimes if I'm talking on the phone, I can just go in with my alcohol markers or my regular markers, and I can just add a little color. This one sort of reminds me of retro. It has like a little retro feel. This is fun for birthdays or a thank you card or whatever. And I literally was talking on the phone for about 20 minutes, and I did this, and it was really fun. I worked my way through all these 4 bright colors. I've got Melon Mambo. Yeah, this is the light Melon Mambo. And I've got the dark Tahitian Tide. I've got dark Parakeet Party. Anything bright, and then dark Daffodil. But anything bright. And I did this, and as I worked my way through, I did a lot of the squares, and then I went back in, and then I did some of these. I'll show you what the finished one looks like. It's actually it was really fun to do. It's very forgiving. And then I ended up cutting this down, and then I made this one. So you can see how I went. I left a lot of white, but I tried to just alternate my colors. Added a little Melon Mambo border on a navy card. I stamped the happy birthday in navy. I stamped this background in navy. That's what I started with. And then I needed something really bold, and this is what I meant earlier, like this is my navy ink pad, but I needed it to be juicy, so these letters really popped. And then a little bit of Zany Zoo behind there with the balloons. So that was fun to do. And then I colored in a different way. So this one is stamped in navy also. And the first thing that I did is I started doing it with regular markers, and I was just running the lines across, but it's really hard on your markers. When you do a lot of these, that's a lot on the tips of your markers. So then I went to the blends, and I thought, well, let's create like a fun kind of plaid. This is the boho blue. You could do the misty moonlight. This is old olive. This one is pecan pie. I was kind of going for a dad card for our nephew. who is a dad of a really cute 8-year-old. So it's kind of going for something like that for him. And you can just color in each direction. It does take a little while, but I ended with something like this. So I ended up just coloring a part of it because I was getting tired, and I thought, well, I'll just take a little piece of it, and then I created this one. Now, there were a few issues with this one along the way. So I cut this piece out, and then I thought it'd be cool to make it a window card. Like this. So I added a little piece of window sheet behind it. But then there was a problem because when you color with your blends, you see the back side. It bleeds through. This one's colored with markers. There's really no bleed through, the regular water-based markers. And then this one is the blends, which are easier to use, but they bleed through. So then I attached my window sheet to the back side. See it? I just did 4 little glue dots. And then I attached this on there, but then I had to cut another piece of white to cover up all of that. And then I just cut a little frame for the inside using those country florals. And this cute little guy, the Playing in the Rain, right here, I ended up going in a completely different direction. It ended up not being the card for the Father's Day, but I think it's really cute. If you don't want to do all the window sheet stuff, what you could do is you could take your dies, take your matching set, whether it's ovals or squares or whatever, kind of tape them together, and then you could make a frame like this. So if you don't want to do the window, you could make your frame and then put that in there, and then add your little guy or whatever you want to put here. So that was an uh-oh that I had to fix, but it came out okay. So you could also add something like this one. This is a great set for dads and grandpas and all those guys in your life. And you could add something like that right here. So I'm going to use this on the next project. So for this one, I'm going to use this in a circle, and I'm going to mask this. This is stamped in crumb cake, and I'm going to use a balmy blue and crumb cake. Now, I'm out of my masking paper that we sell, so I had to use my painter's tape, which works fine. Just make sure that you take a little bit of the tack off first, either on your jeans, on your sweater. Take just a little bit off, and we're going to mask in 2 pieces that I used them over and over again, so it's not too wasteful. Post-it notes are fine, but they're usually not long enough for this. Washi tape is extra sticky, so be careful. The masking paper is really the best if you have it. And then you can use sponges, you can use our brushes. Now we've got these little guys in addition to the bigger ones. But I started with crumb cake, and I just did my masking for crumb cake like this across. You don't need to make it too dark going this way. Just try to make it a little smooth. And I would definitely recommend using the basic white cardstock. It's extra smooth. If you've got too much texture on it, it doesn't look so good. All right, and just try to blend it in. That's probably darker than I wanted. And then we're gonna do the next one up in the balmy blue. So I'll shorten this up. You do not have to watch me do this entire piece of paper. But here's the balmy blue. And then I'll tell you what to do going in the other direction. Right. So I alternated these back and forth and back and forth. Yes, it's time consuming. Now you could also do a sponge dauber, the regular sponge. I just like using the brushes. And I always put like a 1-inch circle on the back so I know my colors. All right, now we can go in the opposite direction. And by the way, if you make it so it's a little longer than your paper, it's nice because it holds the paper down at the same time. Right. Now for these little ones, we're going to go darker with the same color. So rather than bring in a whole other color, I'm going darker with the balmy blue. There we go. So I can really push it in there and make it dark. And I'll show you what the whole thing looks like when it's done. Oops, see, I ripped my paper. I went a little too fast. So when you're all done, it looks like this. So it's surprising to me how much this is all your balmy blue, and then this was your crumb cake pieces, and this is the balmy blue, just a little darker over top. It looks like Lost Lagoon to me, which you could just do a darker color, but I like how it turned out. And then I just added that stamp that I was telling you about right here. Beside me, I did 3 little pops of red, and this will go to my nephew. Now, the other thing that this plaid stamp can do is winter, holiday, Christmas, and fall, of course. I didn't get time to do those, but I'll show you quickly what I'll try with it for next week. So we've got these coming out. These are the online exclusives. They will come out July, well, the very beginning of July. Anyway, there's these, they love doing Christmas in July, and these are not in a catalog. These will be like while supplies last. They're just extras that they throw out there. But there's a really pretty horse and sleigh, and it's very winter scene, and these great dies. And then look at this paper. This is called One Horse Open Sleigh. And I can just see, oh man, 4 sheets of each pattern. And they're really cool looking. I mean, I'll just give you just a quick overview. I'll use these next week since we're getting close to July. Look, isn't that pretty? These are going to be really pretty. And again, these will be while supplies last. These are just sort of extras, out of catalog things. So if you want them, try to get them right away. Aren't they pretty? Look at that. So these are going to be really fun to use. So look for these in my video next week. And these little snowflake embellishments in the different metals. Okay, there you go. That's everything plaid. I've got ink on my fingers. It's a good day. There you go. Go make one. We'll see you next time. See it, learn it, stamp it.